How about if I just start at the beginning? you could be honest.
Because you know what? They have the sweat equity that went into that memory that they're making with their friends and family. And that's what's important with us. And that's what the I Am Real world's about.
Well, that's a great question. You know, one of the best things about a spring food plot is you get a second chance if it fails.
Chasing Giants with Don Higgins. Brought to you by buyafarm.com, your source for farm, recreational properties, rural homes, and more. By tapping into Don's years of experience, dedication, and commitment, Chasing Giants focuses on the techniques, strategies, and dedication needed to harvest one of God's most amazing creations, world-class whitetails. Now, here is Don and co-host Terry Peer.
Well, welcome everybody to Chasing Giants, episode 25, brought to you by buyafarm.com. I'm Terry Peer, and I got Don Higgins on the line tonight. How you doing, Don?
Good, Terry. How are you?
Good. It's July 12th, and we are in midsummer steam, so what's been going on here?
Well, I've been putting out trail cameras, spraying food plots. I did a seminar in Iowa yesterday. I got 3 more seminars before the end of July, and 2 in Michigan, 1 in Ohio. And then early August, I head to Kansas to do 1 out there, actually 2 the same day, same location, but 2 different seminars in Kansas. Spend a lot of time driving the roads in the evening, even slipping off the road, using the Quiet Cat to get back off the road and trying to glass and see a velvet giant. But so far, the big boys have eluded me.
Right.
How about you?
Well, we just got back from vacation. My surgery is this coming Friday, so we took a quick trip down to Panama City, down in Florida, and I hate beach vacations, but wanted to get the family out for a little bit before I'm down for the rest of the summer. So just got back. So I actually pulled cards and went and checked out the food plots today too. I think you did a big card pull today, didn't you?
I did. I had some cameras that had been out since the last week of June. It's been about not quite 3 weeks now, but I was just anxious to get that first pull in. To basically, I'm trying to focus on where I'm spending my time in the evenings, finding these big bucks, and I was hoping that checking some of these cameras would tell me where some bigger bucks are. I didn't go into the areas, where it's highly intrusive. I kind of checked some of the ones that were easy to get to without putting pressure on different farms. Checked cameras on 5 different farms today, and I tell you, I was pretty disappointed. Yeah. It's probably the first time this has ever happened on a first card pull of the year. Checked that many cameras, looked at almost 17,000 pictures, and there was not one picture that I saved. Usually there's some bucks, up and comers or whatever, and some pretty good pictures of those, and I'll save them. But I just didn't have a picture that I felt was worth saving.
Yeah, that's a good point for our listeners. I know you've kind of talked with me your theory on this. So when you're doing a card pull, a younger deer, what would make you save that picture? Is it something that they got a flyer or a kicker or some maybe a split ear or a white? What makes you save a young deer's picture when it might just be a little 6-pointer or something like that? And as a 2, 3, and even 4-year-old, what drives that decision to save that picture?
Well, they've got to be really good for their age class. I mean, I very rarely save a yearling buck's picture, but if it's a yearling buck that's got 10 points or something like that, doesn't happen very often, but I'll save their pictures. 2-year-olds, I don't save just a straight up clean 8-pointer, but if he's got at least 10-point main frame and it's a good picture, good clear picture, if he's got any kind of little extra stickers or things like that to make me think that he could really turn into something, I'll save him. But, it's probably less than 1% of my buck pictures do I really save. It's got to be there's got to be a reason behind it, you know.
Yeah, might be something that would identify that buck so you can learn a little bit as he gets older.
Right, exactly. I want to be able to recognize him and tell him from other bucks.
Right. And if nothing else, even if he doesn't get to be a whopper, you're still learning about that animal and how he shifts or how he moves or when he's there.
Right.
But he's got to have something that's an identifier when he's younger then.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I had, I think, right at 12,000 pictures today. Of course, we're in a little bit different situation here. I didn't have as many cameras out as you do, but I had it over feed and mineral. So we're doing heavy supplemental feeding right now with Maximizer Complete Feed, trying to get as much Expect Healthy Deer technology in those animals as we can. I actually accidentally left one of the cameras on video mode. I guess I was scrolling through the menu button and double tapped the button, and I don't like looking at videos on a trail camera, especially when there's like 2,200 of them. So I got tired of watching videos. I just like flipping through the pictures. But I got a couple decent bucks, nothing huge, but I know there's at least one 7-year-old in there. So we'll see what he turns into. How's your food plots looking?
Actually, fantastic. We've just got timely rains. Got another one last night. Got 8 tenths last night, and my soybeans have looked better than they have in several years, actually. And one thing this spring that I did that I've done it in the past, but it's not worked as well as it did this year, and that's put down a residual herbicide before I plant. And this year I got that application closer to my planting time, and that residual herbicide, it's not going to last forever. It's got a period of time where it's going to work real well. And the idea is you get those soybeans up and get them to canopy before that residual wears off. And the combination of the residual to start and then the canopy of the soybean will keep those weeds down. And I mean, I've got clean looking bean plots, and they're up probably, I bet they're 18 inches tall, maybe 2 foot tall now. They've really, in the last 2 weeks, they've really grown.
Yeah, and you were due because the last 2 or maybe even 3 years you've been either hit by drought or something that made you replant.
Yeah, it's just been one disaster after another. It's either browse pressure or weather conditions or I even had the pheasants wipe my plots out. The little soybeans just start to pop out of the ground, and I got so many pheasants and rabbits on my place that they just eat them up just as soon as that little bean's coming out of the ground.
Right.
But this year I planted more beans than I ever have, and I've got my best bean plots in several years.
Yeah, I think we flopped this year because for the last 4 or 5 years I've had beans up to mid-chest, and this year my beans have struggled. But what happened with me is I planted, it's like Dwayne Hopkins always says, plant by the conditions, not the calendar. And I found my window of when I could plant that had rain in the forecast, and it completely missed us. And after I planted, I bet we were dry for 14, 15 days, just scorching hot. And what I thought originally was just browse pressure and really a thin crop of beans, because I broadcast seed mine. What ended up, I think at least my theory is where it's really thin is on the knoll in the middle of my food plot, not back in the inside corners where the deer come out. And I usually have browse pressure, so I'm pretty convinced that those seeds laid there so long before germination that the 40, 60 turkey a night that come up and go and hang out on that knoll, just a little bit of a elevated spot in the food plot, just went in there and scratched it back and ate a ton of my bean seed before they could germinate.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm confident that's the because back over where I usually have heavier browse pressure, that's looks pretty good. So if it was going to be browse pressure, it would be back over in those areas, I think. So I think the turkeys got me this year.
Well, and those dry, ridge tops or clay knobs, we call them, or around here. If it's dry, they hardly produce much of a crop at all.
Yeah.
Probably the same way down your way.
Yeah, I went over there today. My beans aren't quite as tall as yours. They're probably 10, maybe 11 inches tall, but they're just thin. So before we left for Florida, I sprayed them, and so the weeds, I don't have a weed problem. So we'll just see if it's thick enough that they'll canopy out and bush out. That actually is a good question. Maybe you can elaborate on that. We tell people to plant when we answer questions for Real World about planting, 60, 65 pounds an acre when they're broadcast seeding. And that's not really because of the canopy we're looking for. That's because most people are going to try to drag it or disc it in, and they're going to lose some germination when they broadcast seed. Tell us a little bit about how a bean plant works. If it's got a ton of beans and you get a really thick stand, what that bean does as far as getting tall and narrow versus you plant them a little bit wider rows, how the bean will bush out. But at the end of the day, it's still going to produce about the same amount of pods per, say, a hula hoop circle. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, the soybean plant has a unique ability to kind of utilize the space it's given and fill in the space it's given. If you notice farmers planting soybeans, some of them are planting soybeans on 30-inch rows, and other guys are going 15-inch rows, and some are even drilling them in at 7.5, 8-inch rows. And the guys that are putting them on the narrower rows really are not gaining much because the soybean just has that unique ability to fill in the space it's given. And if they're planted really thick, then each plant is not going to produce as much. But, for the area that we're talking about, whether it be an acre or whatever, it's going to come out pretty much the same. So, a guy that broadcasts, the reason we recommend putting a little more seed on when you broadcast is because you either go to lightly disc that seed in or you drag it or whatever, and a little bit of that seed might get too deep, but a lot of it's going to not get covered at all. You're still going to be able to see some of that red seed on top of the ground, and you get a condition like what you had this year, Terry, and it's dry. Well, that seed that's sitting up on top of the ground is not going to have a chance.
Right.
If you had a rain come in right after you did that, then that seed that's on top of the ground, it's going to still grow. Right. But situation like you had, it's not going to.
Right. So in my case, where I look out across the field right now and I see a lot of dirt, it's not real thick. What we're hoping for is that plant gets out and it bushes out versus just growing only vertical to compete with the other plant right beside it. So it'll still get taller, but we're hoping that it spreads out, and bushes out more like a bush bean than just getting one spindly stalk with a bunch of bean pods on it. So it's It's interesting how that plant will adapt to what competition is around it.
Mm-hmm.
So how's the trail camera test going? How many cameras do you actually have out right now?
Oh, I've got probably pushing 40 cameras out, different models. I guess there's one or two brands that are kind of standing out from the rest. I'm not really ready to give my blessing to any of them yet.
Yep.
I know years ago there was a brand that I just fell in love with it right out of the gate, and then them cameras were fantastic cameras for about a year, and then on year 2, it seems like every one of them quit working.
Yep.
And I almost think that company is no longer in business, and I think that's why. But I almost think it was by design. They were Chinese-made cameras, and I think they were made to work great out of the box, but they wanted you to buy another one every year.
Yep.
That's the only reason I could think.
That's the big thing. It's, you got to trade off the price point of the camera. And, okay, well, if it costs a third of what other cameras do, are you okay with replacing it every year? But when you're running 40 to 60 cameras like us, we're buying cameras every year is just a fruition of replacing the ones that are older. To go in and replace every single one we have each year, it's just not going to work. I just pulled 2 cameras today that are 3 years old. I take a Sharpie on the inside of the lid and keep a track of the how old each camera is. And what I started noticing is that when the humidity gets up, the nighttime pictures are white. And there was a couple pictures. Actually, there's one picture. I only have one picture of a buck coming across an alfalfa field. I don't have him anywhere else on any other camera in the farm. This is one picture that I had, and it's so white that I can't even make out what it is. And I know he's decent. I mean, you can see mass and you can see a lot of antler, but can't even tell what it is. And it looks to me, based on the dates of the camera, it was real high humidity nights or some night that it had rain. So I'm wondering if there isn't water on the inside of that lens. So I pulled those and replaced them today. I'm actually going to hang them here at the house and just in the tree in the backyard and go out there and see if it's like a condensation building up on the outside of the lens or if it's on the inside. If it's on the outside, I might try taking a Q-tip with some Rain-X or something on it, but if it's on the inside, they'll just go in the trash.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the trade-off of how long do you want them to last versus the price point. So
Yeah, one thing interesting about this test is I've made some Facebook posts about this trail camera test that I'm doing and asking people's opinions. And, it seems like every brand of camera out there has its fans. They've been mentioned. Somebody or other is going to say, try this one, try that one. But I've seen brands mentioned that I absolutely know are junk. And I think what happens with a lot of deer hunters is they buy a camera of whatever brand and they get some pictures with it and they think, man, this is great. The pictures, they're looking at the quality of the picture, and this is a nice, sharp, clear picture. This is fantastic. I love these cameras. But what they don't even realize is how many pictures they probably missed with some of these different brands. Yeah. And that's the reason for testing them side by side on the same tree or same post is price is not the determining factor for me. I just need to know that I'm getting pictures of everything that walks by, and it's a picture that's clear enough that I can tell what it is.
Well, and it's even more critical for you when you're catching them on a travel corridor because you can't use feed or mineral.
Uh-huh.
The guys that are like me that might put, a camera over a mineral site, we'll get, if we set it on two picture burst every 30 seconds, we'll get 12 pictures of that deer before he leaves the spot. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. So even the low shutter speed and you miss a lot of pictures, you still might get that picture. When you're using it in Illinois on inside corners, travel corridors, pinch points, you don't have a way to get that deer necessarily to stop there for 3 minutes. So it's even more important in those applications that you have a camera that you got confidence in. Yeah.
And, there's probably people wondering how I got 17,000 pictures and on these cameras, and I'm using my rope scrapes right now. And,
right.
The interesting thing is you have a bachelor group of bucks come by that rope scrape, and the first buck comes up to the rope, and you'll see the other bucks in the background, and he'll, rub his face on that rope for a little bit, and then he walks away. Then the next one is, and it's crazy how every buck in line is single file. They'll take their turn, and each one of them will come up and work that rope for a little bit, and you get several pictures of him. And then he walks away, and the next one comes. It's almost in the pecking order, too.
Really?
The first buck to show up will be the smallest buck in the bunch, or the yearlings. And the big guys, you can see them back. A lot of times you can see them in the background of the picture. And they're just hanging back, and they're letting the little guys check things out. And then, the 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, and finally the mature bucks. And
they want their scent to be the last one on there.
Yeah, when that bachelor group comes by that rope, you could get, several hundred pictures. You might get 500 pictures within a few minutes because every buck stops there in front of that camera and works that rope over.
Right.
And then he moves on, and you got the bucks in the background. It might be 2 or 3 minutes, and the next buck walks up there, but you're still getting their picture before they come to that rope. And when a bachelor group comes to that rope, you can get a bunch of pictures at one time.
Yeah. So as far as fall plots, with your beans doing as well as they are this year, how much? I know you kind of gauge what you do in fall plots a little bit by how successful your spring plots are. What do you got cooking for planting fall plots here in mid to end of August? You got areas you're going to put some in?
Yeah, I do. I saved 2 plots that were in soybeans last year. I try to rotate. My ideal rotation is 2 years in soybeans, 1 year in deadly dozen. And that gives me 2/3 of my acreage in soybeans each year. And this year I even did a corn test plot. One of my consulting clients had some seed corn, and he just insisted that I try, and just raving on and on about how the deer love it. They'll tear it up before they will other corn. And he sent me a free bag of it, and I had a plot that was right next to a brand new switchgrass planting. And I was wanting to put something there anyway that I could use the same herbicides on the switchgrass and the plot. I was going to plant grain sorghum in it. Actually, I already had the seed to plant grain sorghum, and then he sent me that corn. And, you can use 2,4-D on corn and the switchgrass both, and atrazine as well. So I went ahead and planted that corn. So I've got a corn plot for the first time ever, and it looks pretty darn good, too. It's starting to tassel already and, put the silk on. So I've got about a 3-acre corn patch, but I've got 2 small plots that are going to go into deadly dozen. They're probably 1/2 to 3/4 of an acre each.
Yeah, I'm gonna redo that clover plot that I lost because of no rain and the weeds taking over it, and then I think I'm just gonna make a judgment call, because I got 2.5 acres of soybeans on the ridge, so. If I have a real thin spot that didn't bush out, I have a subcompact tractor and a small little disc. I'm just going to go right in the middle and till up what areas are real thin and try to leave as much beans as I can. So I'm just going to try to play it by ear. It's one of those things. The best part about spring food plots is, if they fail, you can put a plan B together for them. So
right.
So.
And, I've advised a lot of my consulting clients they'll have a bigger plot, and I'll just tell them, put the whole thing in soybeans and then come in the fall, like around the 1st of September, and take your tractor and your disc and disc up the edge, maybe 1 or 2 passes around the edge of that plot. That's where the browse pressure is the heaviest anyway, and the beans are the worst. And, seed your fall plot around the edge and leave the middle of the plot into the soybeans.
Right.
Pretty good plan. And that's basically what you're talking about is the areas where the soybeans are the worst, you're going to work it up and plant your fall stuff.
Yep. So it'll just be interesting. My surgery is this coming Friday, so we'll see how it goes. Hopefully, the doctor told me that I will be on crutches for 6 to 8 weeks. So if I look at a calendar, exactly 6 weeks from this coming weekend is opening day of Kentucky archery season. So
I'll bet you find a way to be out there.
Even if I'm on crutches, I'll be there. But
yep.
It's going to be my goal to be able to walk to the blind on. I don't think I'm going to be able to get elevated, but I got a couple blinds that I can get to that's straight out the back of the ridge. So I actually, I'm having to wear a leg brace that goes from my hip down to my ankle, and it's the same brace that I'll wear post-surgery, and it locks in different positions based on the range of motion. I actually locked it today and went and got on the Quiet Cat bike just to practice to see if I could get on that Quiet Cat with my leg locked, because I don't have to pedal with it, right? So my thinking is even if I'm on crutches, I can stick those crutches in the saddlebags, put my bow on the rack on the handlebars, and I can actually zip right back back the ridge on that quiet cat without bending my knee. So I'm gonna practice it a little bit more this week. It's gonna be kind of my contingency plan. This quiet cat might be my handicap mobile getting around for the beginning of the season. So, but I don't want to wait till after surgery to practice it. So if I wipe out and wreck, I want to do it before surgery. So
yeah, then they can fix it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want them to have to fix it twice. So
all right. Well, if you need me to come down and get you to your stand, I'll do whatever it takes.
Yeah, I appreciate it. We'll figure it out as we go. I'm gonna hit therapy pretty hard, so it'll be if I end up killing a decent deer this year, it's gonna be a story because of what we're gonna have to go through to get it done. But we're gonna figure out a way, some way or another.
I'll bet you get one.
So, all right. Well, if you don't got anything else, why don't we move on to the buyfarm.com property of the week? Okay.
Sounds good.
Buyafarm.com is your source for farm, recreational properties, rural homes, and more. Now, here is Don Higgins with this week's featured property.
All right, we got a really special property this week. This property, it's an online auction for a property that we had featured back in on podcast number 9 and also on podcast 15. It had been listed. The listing expired, and the owner decided to have an auction. And I'm telling you, I just cannot believe nobody has bought this property. I get an opportunity to walk a lot of properties for clients and just on my own scouting every year as well. And this property is literally one of the best that I've seen ever. And just because of the layout, this is a property where you could grow giants and kill them. You can kill any bucket on the property. It's an island. It sits in the Mississippi River bottom. It's in Monroe County. It's only about 30 miles from St. Louis on the Illinois side. But it's an island. The farm was put into WRP several years ago. Some of the property was planted into trees. Some of it was put into shallow water wetlands. There's areas for food plots. This property it's even got a building on it with living quarters to make your hunting camp and also to store a tractor or whatever in. 167 acres. But I'm telling you, this place, somebody is going to buy this at this auction. It's an online auction, and they're going to have a whitetail paradise. You absolutely do not have to worry about anybody sitting your property line because your property line is open ag fields all the way around. There's one ditch that runs along one side of it that runs out. There may be an issue with somebody sitting on that ditch, but other than that, I'm telling you, 90% of the border of this property, you're not going to have anybody sitting within a half a mile of you. And that's the kind of places that it's a lot like my property. Those of you listening who have been to my Whitetail Master course and have seen my place realize that it's kind of an island that sits by itself out in a sea of ag. This property is the very same way. If I was in the market for a property, this is one that I would take a serious look at. And if it was closer to my house, I'd probably be trying to buy it anyway, but it's about a 3-hour drive.
If it was closer to your house, we would probably already have made an offer on it between the two
of us. No doubt about it. It's a 3-hour drive for me to get there. And I'm trying to build a house here in the next year or so too. And it's just the timing is not right, and it's just too far away. But I'm telling you what, somebody is going to get a whitetail paradise. And as most of you know, I'm a agent for BioFarm, and anyone that buys this property, I'm going to put a free whitetail management plan together for the buyer. But don't let this slip away. I'm not sure if the online auction started yet. I was on the BioFarm website earlier this week, and it was not on there yet, but it probably is by now. Look for the 167-acre property in Monroe County, Illinois. If you've got any questions on this property, you need to call Wayne Keller. Wayne's phone number is 618-407-1679. And I just can't stress enough. Just go back and listen to how I talked about this property in podcast 9 and podcast 15. And I just can't believe nobody has nabbed this one yet.
Yeah, it's a dandy for sure. We've talked about it multiple times. I mean, it's 3 hours from you, and 7.5 hours from me. It's just not doable. But just fantastic property. So, and I mean, you can go there and start staying now with the living quarters in the outbuilding. So, I mean, you could use it as a hunting camp or wait until you build something there immediately. So, pretty cool property.
Yeah. And if you're not crazy about whitetails only like I am, and you just like to hunt, you got the wetlands for waterfowl. You're right on the Mississippi River bottom. It is protected by the levee, so it's on the other side of the levee from the river. I don't know that, I really can't say if it gets underwater or not, but I can tell you all the ground around it's farmed, so it can't flood that bad.
Right.
But, this would be a good, tax write-off for a company or something that they could, open up for the employees or management of the company.
Hey, there's an idea.
Yeah. I know what you're thinking. I'm talking big company. Big company.
Okay. I thought we were going to sign Wes Delks up for something tonight.
Well, you know what? We can maybe use his salary to buy this. But
we'll find out if Wes is listening to episode 25 now.
I don't think he listens until we razz him about us talking about him. Yeah. Then he has to go back and see what we said.
Yep, I think you're right. So anyway, check out buyafarm.com for this property and other properties. But if you're specifically looking for this online auction, search Monroe County, 167 acres, dandy of a piece of property over on the west side of Illinois. So give it a look. Now, as we move into the next segment, you had kind of teased a little bit about how we were going to use this episode today to talk a little bit about getting into the hunting industry. And I want you to go through your thought process on this because it's really driven around one question that we're going to use tonight.
Yeah, I'm going to read one submitted question before we get started, but or to get into that segment. But, I get a lot of questions very similar to this one that was submitted, and most of them don't come through Chasing Giants. I just get emails, phone calls, Facebook messages, whatever, it's usually younger guys that are looking to get into the hunting industry and are looking for advice. And so I'm going to read this question, and Terry and I are both going to provide some of our thoughts. We've got two different angles. I started out as an outdoor writer 25 years ago, but Terry handles the pro staff for Real World Wildlife Products. And he gets a ton of requests from different people wanting to be on the pro staff and such. And he's going to share, what makes him choose one person or one group over another. And, we're doing this to really help the listener, try to give you some good advice and get you to look at things from a different angle. If you really are serious about getting into the hunting industry, hopefully you can take something away from what we're sharing this evening on this podcast and, make your way into the hunting industry. So I'll start out by reading this submitted question. It was submitted by Adam Rosendale. He says, "Hi, Don. I enjoyed your first Chasing Giants podcast, and I am excited to learn from you this season through them. Don, I started following you a year or two ago on Facebook, and more I have felt God nudging me to get in touch with you. I am 26 years old, and I have been working full-time for 5 years at a fluid power shop on hydraulic cylinders and equipment. Before I started working full-time, I went to college for a few years trying to figure out what I wanted to do for a career. I became passionate about the outdoors and specifically hunting whitetails when I was a sophomore in high school. And it has evolved into becoming passionate about land management as well in the more recent years. At the end of my time in college, I decided I wanted to see what the hunting industry was about. So I did an internship at Harpold's Heartland Lodge in Pike County, Illinois, for 6 months, which led to guiding for them in the fall of 2014. This experience was a lot of fun, although after guiding that season, I was unsure if guiding was really the place for me in the hunting industry. I guess guiding didn't really fully fulfill my passion for the outdoors. Being unsure where to go from there, I ended up working hard for the hydraulic company that I had worked for part-time through college and am now the lead technician for. I got married in 2016 to my high school sweetheart, and we bought a 22-acre farm last April that I have been blessed to be able to enjoy learning about land management on a small scale. I've been waiting for God to lead me into where I may belong in the hunting industry if there's a place for me in it, as He instilled in me such a passion for the outdoors. And I feel you are the person in the industry who I most relate to passion-wise. So I felt that I should make contact with you and learn from you. I have no expectations. I am taking a step of faith. Where did you start, and what were your first steps in the hunting industry, and how has your career evolved? And again, that was submitted by Adam Rosendale. So, wow, this is going to be lengthy, folks, and this is going to be the only submitted question that we're going to have on this episode. First time we've only had one, but we're going to get kind of in depth here, both Terry and I, and in this discussion about the hunting industry. You know, my story actually started when I was in my mid-30s. I was married and had 2 little girls, and my wife and I at that time, we struggled to keep our bills paid. I mean, there was more than once, where we had I'd get a paycheck and there'd be a stack of bills on the table, and the paycheck wouldn't come close to paying them. And then we would have to get grocery money and other things out of that as well. It was just, I felt as the man of the family that, if I bought anything hunting gear wise, I felt like I was taken from my family. And I got the idea that if I could write magazine articles, hunting articles, and sell a few of them a year, and then start use that money to buy my hunting equipment so that I wasn't taking money from my family for hunting, that was my motivating factor to start as an outdoor writer. And, I was blessed that Gordon Whittington at North American Whitetail, he published my first article. It appeared in August of 1996, and kind of grew from there. And what I discovered, after a year or so, maybe a couple of years of writing a few articles, I started attending the ATA show and meeting these various reps for these different companies and owners of companies and such. And at that time, the hunting industry was totally different than it is today. A lot of these companies would, if you wrote a single magazine article or you killed one nice buck, they was throwing free product out right and left. And so here I was writing articles so I could use that money to buy hunting equipment. And all of a sudden I wasn't having to buy anything. It was, a bunch of tree stands would show up. UPS man would drop off a box of arrows and, maybe a release from my bow, and new bows were showing up, and, anything that I would need, new clothing, the latest and greatest camo pattern and scent elimination technology. It was just showing up at my door as I had written just a few articles. And I wasn't a well-published author or nothing. I was probably writing, maybe a half a dozen articles a year. And, but that was enough. And these companies that were breaking or looking to really make their name in the hunting industry, because the hunting industry was really just starting to explode at that time. And, they was doing anything they could to get their products out there to have, as an outdoor writer, they wanted me to mention their products, my name in the articles, or use photos that included their products, to illustrate the articles. And that's how I got started. And, I've kind of I have seen the industry change really big time since those days. Now, these companies gave out so much free product that it was just ridiculous, really. And they were taken advantage of by people that, like, for example, one guy who's a rep for a major bow company told me, you'd be surprised how many bows we send out and never get a simple thank you from the person that gets them. And so the hunting industry changed, and the free product, that train kind of came to a slow halt, and it just became harder and harder. Today, I try to separate myself. I know these companies get hounded just day and night. I mean, on a daily basis for sure, from people either looking for free product or looking for some sort of financial sponsorship for a TV show or a web show or what have you. And, I try to set myself apart. I try to prove myself first. If there's a product that I want to sponsor, I want the company to sponsor me, I first buy that product. I make sure that that's a company that's a good fit for me. There's a lot of people today that are just going down the list, and Terry's going to, when he talks here in a little bit, he's going to share some of this with you. But these companies, they get it's a form email that the guy is sending there, but they don't even call you by name or the company by name. It's just, hey, here, I'm Joe Blow, and I shot a deer last year, scored 178 inches. Here's a picture of it. I want to be on your pro staff, blah, blah, blah. And there's no reason. The people give no reason for the company to sponsor them. Well, I try to take a different approach. I try to get to know the company. I want to make sure that their product is something that I feel comfortable endorsing or promoting. And then I try to build a relationship with people in that company and take it from there. But, one big mistake I made when I started in the hunting industry, or one false assumption that I made was, I thought that I had to be a really good deer hunter to be on a pro staff, that the pro staff and these guys that are working in the hunting industry, they are the top-notch hunters in the whole world. And I just needed to sharpen my hunting skills, and hopefully I would make it. And what I found out is you don't need to be a hunter at all, but you need a unique angle. These pretty girls that you see that are in the hunting industry, a lot of them are there, and I know this is not going to sit well with some of them, but it's the absolute truth. Some of them are there only because of their looks, and that's fine.
Well, that's the only reason I get.
Angle.
That's the only reason I get likes, Don. Is because of my looks.
Well, that's why we hired you, Terry, because you're so good looking. But there's different angles, and there's guys that are in the hunting industry because they are fantastic marketers. They don't have a clue really about hunting. They may hunt, but they're average hunters at best, but they're fantastic marketers. And I wish I had some of their marketing skills, actually, but you've got to have a unique angle, and don't look to copy somebody else. Find your own strengths and play to those strengths, whatever they are. It's a changing industry for sure. And it continues to evolve. And, one way that I'm seeing things change here, where it seems apparent to me that the celebrity endorsement type deals that used to happen, every company had a celebrity plugging their products. And what I think has happened over time is these bigger name celebrities have jumped ship to the highest bidder. 1 year they're telling you that, hey, Company X makes the best bow. I'll only hunt with Company X bows, blah, blah, blah. Well, the next year, hey, I got a new bow from Company Y. Company Y, and it's the same guy telling you that changing his sponsorship. Basically, most of the time it's selling out to the highest bidder, and people are getting wise to that. The consumer is getting a lot smarter, a lot sharper, and they're seeing through that. So you don't see the celebrity endorsements to the degree you used to. And, I think that trend is going to continue. I think the day's coming where there's going to be maybe a handful of people that are even in that league where a company would pay them to promote their products. So I just see things changing, and I don't know, Terry, am I right, or
No, you're absolutely
you're the
right.
one that sees all this these emails and contact coming in? I don't even see them. You do, from people wanting Real World to sponsor them. So maybe you can build on what I've said.
Well, let's put some bookends around so people understand it. Real World is a fairly small company as it relates to, in the hunting industry. When you compare it to like Matthews or Vortex. Last week, we were in Florida from Saturday to Saturday. And, everybody that listens knows I have a blown knee and, really couldn't do much. So most of my time was spent either in the condo or on the patio of the condo or on the pool deck. I did venture out to the beach, but most of the time I was working because I couldn't do anything with the family. Last week, I knew this was coming this week. I wanted to keep track of how many requests I got last week. And keep in mind, this is middle of July or beginning of July, so it's not even the peak season for this. But I got 22 requests last week for us to have promotion partnerships or pro staff considerations. 22 I got last week. And we're a small company, and it's kind of the dead period. So you could imagine what we're getting around ATA show. Okay? So the first thing that should tell you is when you're asking, you better have a way to be different. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about why things are changing, kind of what Don was talking about from when it was 15, 20 years ago. When you first walked through ATA, Don, actually, when I first met Don, I dabbled in trying to be on a film crew that we wanted to be the next, back then it was even produced DVDs. It wasn't even outdoor television as far as satellite. And if you walked through ATA back then and you had a high-def camera, which that was back then, $6,000 to $10,000 investment, you better have had a two-wheeler or a wagon for how much product these companies were handing you to take home and use for free. I mean, you remember those days, right? It didn't matter if it was tree stands, bows, whatever. And the first year that I actually met Don we were a mutual person. We kind of combined to the same team that was sponsored by Matthews, and we were going to film that year. I didn't like it. I still to this day don't really like being in front of the camera, but I focused more on the business side, and I really enjoy that side of the outdoor industry. But what you have to understand, the difference between then and now, is a little something you may have heard of it. It's called social media. 15 years ago, it didn't exist, and the only way that people, meaning companies, marketing directors, advertising, could get the word out and show their product was to have people use it. And if you had that video camera, that was the secret sauce. So you had the celebrities that were using it, but then the celebrities, people got jaded towards them because, like you said, they started going, well, I'm going to the highest bidder this year, and next year I'm going to be shooting that. And at the same time, there became this different anomaly in the outdoor industry where these smaller companies started getting gobbled up by the conglomerates. So you started having, I remember the first broadhead sponsor I had was, and Don loves people who use expandable broadheads. He would talk your ear off on it. But there was this company called Rocky Mountain Broadheads, which it was actually the first kind of design that turned into a rage now. And eventually little companies like that would start getting bought up by the Synergies and the bigger conglomerates, where now you walk through ATA show, there'll be one booth in the middle and they'll have 60 brands inside of that booth. So put that on the back burner. Understand that the industry has changed, because instead of these little companies trying to get the word out that they have this product that they want you to buy, now it's these big conglomerates. Keep in mind that no longer do the companies have to pay big TV spot commercials. They can get what's called influencers on what this new thing called social media that came out to showcase and use it. and get it a whole lot at a whole lot cheaper, making a better return on investment. So here's these guys that's been in the industry for 20 years, and they're complaining because, you know, the people that they've worked with for so many years that they think has helped build that company, create that brand, now all of a sudden the industry's changing, the company's advertising differently, they're cutting back on how much financial or product sponsors they're doing. Well, why? Number one, the margins in the companies are getting smaller. Number two, they can get more exposure using, instead of $250,000 sponsorship to a TV personality, they can put 25 guys on a field staff program, and if it's promoted right with the right analytics behind it, they can get more bang for their buck a whole lot cheaper than they are putting their apples in one basket to a celebrity hunter that you convince to be with you this year, but there's no guarantee you're going to lose him in free agency next year. So you have to understand that's how this whole thing is working. You know, the guys that were in it, it's changed. Either you adapt and change with it, or you basically get left behind. So going into the industry now, you have to understand that this is that cycle that people are in. So companies like Real World, companies like Matthews, companies like Vortex, they're all looking for someone to represent their product differently than it was 20 years ago. So without getting too crazy into consumer behavior and marketing, think about it this way. The best analogy I can give you, Don, is when you went to buy a car 15 years ago, you would drive from lot to lot and ask the salesperson, what do you have? Here's the type of car that I want. Here's here's my budget. And then he would say, well, I have this vehicle. It's at this price. And you would talk about it. And then you would shop at the next car lot for it. Today, what you do is you get online and you run a query, and it plots out where all these cars are at. And even there's really, in a lot of times, there's not even negotiating. It's already a bottom dollar price with a finance plan. That salesman never has contact with you until you're at the point in which you're ready to make a decision. That's the biggest difference for marketing guys and companies now, because they don't get a chance to pitch their product to you anymore, because you're out looking at social media, you're out looking at the internet. You think you already know what you want before you get a chance to hear their sales pitch. So what I need out of a pro staff person is not someone that calls me and says, hey, I can promote your product, because my first question back to them is, how are you promoting my product? Well, I'll tell everybody to buy it. Well, why do they need to buy it? Well, because you guys clearly are the best. I read what's on your website. Well, how do you know we're the best? There's no credibility there. I'm looking for guys who have already used our product, that they're confident in it, that they would pay for it if they had to, because they know it's the best product out there to increase their chances of accomplishing their goals. These guys that just say, oh, well, I can go around and help sell and promote it and tell everybody about it. That doesn't differentiate you from anybody else that's these 22 calls I got, or emails that I got last month. You have to first find the right person, find the Terry Peer of whatever company you're looking for, and then go in and look at their social media and their advertising and try to already understand what do they try to sell about their product. They're either selling technology, differentiation, or commodity, which means they're the cheapest and easiest to get to. And all of them are effective ways of selling, but you have to understand and align with the companies that you want to do. And I'll be honest with you, Don, if I go in and I get an application from somebody and they have to, read off or list their social medias, if I go in there and all I see is a bunch of selfies in a tree stand, that does not show me that they can tell the story of why Real World is better than our competition. That doesn't help Quiet Cat say we're a better bike or we're a better solution for a financial decision than Rambo. It doesn't say that why I choose and use Vortex over Leupold. Okay? You have to be able to tell someone else as an influencer why they should purchase that, because remember, those companies aren't getting their sales guys in touch with these end consumers. They're looking at influencers out on the internet. So you want to stand out, you got to be different, and you're not going to be different just coming to somebody saying, I want to promote your product. You better understand how you're going to promote our product or else I'm going to pass on to the next guy.
And now everybody knows why I'm partnered with Terry. His strengths are my weaknesses.
Well, we I got asked the question, you'll find this one funny. Somebody was saying, do I need a college degree to work in the outdoor industry? No. You don't have to have a college degree to work anywhere. But I think you do have to have a basic understanding of how you everybody goes into Field and Stream, Bass Pro Shops, Cabela's, and they buy something. Think about your decision to go buy that. What put you across? It's called the pivot point. There is the first stage in the consumer buying cycle is there's a stimulation that says, I might need this. And then there's a first moment of truth that says, I'm not quite sure. Then there's a second moment of truth that, I'm really thinking about this. And then you get to the pivot point where you're standing at that shelf or you're in an Amazon cart saying, yes, I'm going to do this. What drove you to that point? And figure out how you, with your following, whether it's 100 people or whether it's 10,000 people, how you can help a company get more people to say, yep, that's what I'm getting at. And you sitting in a tree stand taking selfies with duck lips ain't gonna make it fly. I promise you. You might sell some tree saddles that way, though.
You're the marketing guru, Terry. I'll let you sell them. The one thing I'll throw out there is that, we've got one pro staff guy in particular that I can think of, real world. The guy never even submitted an application, never even asked to be on pro staff. But we simply seen him promoting our products continually on social media, products that he was buying and paying for, and that's Kevin Thayer. And I don't know, some of you probably recognize the name Kevin Thayer. He's on a lot of the food plot.
You need to go follow Kevin Thayer's Facebook page, people. Seriously.
Yep. So we seen Kevin or Terry noticed it, I think, and I noticed it too. I just never thought to reach out to him, but seen him continually promoting real world products. And so Terry reached out to him and said, hey, we need to get you a discount or something, get you on our pro staff. And
he's like, I don't really care.
But that's the kind of someone who genuinely believes in a product and they're going to use it even if they have to buy it. Those are the kind of people that can really promote a product. I mean, these guys that are coming along and they're looking to be on a pro staff. They don't give a crap what pro staff it is. If Matthews isn't going to take them, they're going to PSE. If PSE ain't going to take them, they're going to Hoyt. If Hoyt ain't going to take them, they're going right on down the line.
There's two
those
things.
People are.
Yep. There's two things that's really bugged me the last couple years. One of them, a former pro staff group that we had, they planted our beans, and he had an absolute giant, 200-inch deer in early season coming out and feeding in these beans. And you know what he had the gall to say to me? Is he said, if I kill this deer, we're going to have to talk about how many zeros go on the check. And I was like, what? He said, well, I'm going to kill a 200-inch deer out of your beans. You're going to have to write me a big check to get that footage. And I said, do you write me a check if you don't kill anything? So the selfishness of where people are just saying, look, I'm going to take advantage of someone with my success. That's not how a partnership works. The second thing that's really bothered me is I actually had a guy that I really wanted to work with. And he was asking me some questions about Matthew's bows, and Don and I have been shooting those for a lot of years. And he said, well, if they won't give me a free bow, I'll shoot whoever gives me a free one. And right then and there, I said, well, clearly you're not the type of people I want to work with. And I fulfilled my end of the agreement for what we had already as a gentleman's agreement said we would do, and I haven't worked with him since. So people have to understand that there's a little bit more to this than now, who's going to scratch my back. Now, there is the other side that I think companies need to also live up to their end of it, and that could be a whole other discussion that I get into because, there are some companies that take advantage of their sale or their pro staffs too, but I don't think that's the focus we need to get into here. But the selfishness of what people have that, you owe this to me. It's like, wait, this has got to be a win-win for both people. The margins that we have as outdoor companies are nowhere near what people think that they really are. And we're investing in you making posts, tagging us, but not just showing a picture of the bottle or the camo pattern. Telling other people why they're different or why they should buy it or the advantages that you give. You want to stand out in this industry, that's what you got to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think loyalty and long-term relationships with the right companies carry a lot of weight. I know with Matthews for 20-some years now, and they have been so good to me. They believed in me before any other boat company did. They believed in me 20 years ago when I was just having a handful of articles put out there. There literally is not a boat company in existence that would pull me away from Matthews just because my loyalty to them for thinking enough of me years ago to take a chance on me.
Right.
And that's the kind of loyalty and long-term relationships that are pretty rare in the hunting industry. I talked a little bit about, these celebrity endorsements, where the celebrities jumping from one company to the next. And, the public has no longer puts any credibility in what those people say if they're jumping around like that. So, build a relationship with a company, and that relationship can start. It doesn't have to start with a pro staff position or any position whatsoever. It can start with you buying their product and believing in their product and building from there. But Terry's done a fantastic job with our pro staff, and I'm glad he's doing it because I couldn't do what he does and handle some of the emails and such that he gets, and he's way more diplomatic than I would be.
Well, it would be okay. So, and you're going to probably cringe at me even saying this, but here's a great example. Okay, Lee and Tiffany, great people. We've gotten to know them over the years. They've used Real World products. They've purchased Real World products. We've given them Real World products. They've gone and made a transition there. With who they're working with this year and left Evolved and gone to Analogics. Well, we know for a fact that they've purchased and used our Expect Healthy Deer technology for a few years, and that was part of Lee's, and this isn't me saying it, you can go listen to podcasts that Lee's actually been out on or his social media where he's answered people and said he's feeding our feed. But if he went and all of a sudden said, okay, because we're using X brand, it saved deer for the last 3 years, all of a sudden that credibility's gone. And too many people in the outdoor industry are saying, okay, well, I'm going to say this hunting blind is the best. And then all of a sudden the next year, well, this hunting blind is the best. Well, there's no credibility in that anymore. And people see through that. And I think that's why the celebrity side of this is completely just tainted, that it doesn't mean anything. People understand that they're just going to where the next highest bidder is. And there's a few people in the industry that I think hold a very high credibility that they'll only use the stuff that they believe in. But there's also a ton of people in this industry that will shoot a bow, shoot a broadhead, and hunt out of a tree stand that is a direct competitor against who they're sponsored by, and they'll go back and do B-roll footage pulling that bow back with a different arrow, a different broadhead, and not show the tree stand because, it's not fulfilling the commitment they have. So have credibility, have loyalty, find the people that fit alongside of what you're going to do, and just be yourself. I think that's the biggest thing.
I think that pretty much sums it up.
So you probably didn't know I was going there, but it's a good
No.
analogy. It's a good analogy, though.
Yeah. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. So.
But the truth is the truth, so it is what it is.
Right.
But and there's people have to recognize. I get these questions all the time, and Terry just said, he got 23 or whatever it was, 22
last
23
week. 22 last week.
And I don't. The question I read off today, I probably get on average about 3 of those a week. They may come by email or social or Facebook messages a lot of times. But what you guys got to remember, you younger folks, is that there is so many of you trying to do the same thing. There are thousands, if not tens of thousands, of folks in their 20s and 30s trying to crack into the hunting industry. And, a lot of times I advise people, you just need to have fun as a hunter. You need to, especially people that are like in high school age. I tell them to get a job, making as much money as they can, doing something they enjoy, and use that money to buy a piece of hunting ground later in life, to go on hunting trips or things like that. The hunting industry is not going to make you rich. Very, very, very few people in the hunting industry get rich because of that. A lot of them made their money elsewhere and used that money to buy their way into the hunting industry. They maybe bought a company that was already in the hunting industry or something like that. You just need to enjoy hunting and the outdoors. And, you can do things to try to make your way into caught up in it that you ruin the fun that you have hunting.
And there's a lot of small groups that's and there may be family or a group of buddies that they really enjoy the digital platform. That's great. That's actually the guys that I look for. Just guys having a good time and enjoying it, not putting the pressure. That's honestly the reason why I hated being in front of a camera. Because when at the end of the day, if I had the conditions right to go out and kill a mature buck and I didn't have a camera guy, I wanted to still be able to hunt. And it's a different level of dedication, and most hunters do not have the ability to bounce from outfitter to outfitter and go on trip to trip to fill enough footage to really produce a TV show. So it's a tough racket, but there is a place for everybody, no matter whether you shot a 200-inch deer or you're just getting started. You can still tell a story for companies in the outdoor industry and be a part of their social influencing team. So if you got more questions about it, just reach out to me on my social media. I'll be happy to talk about it. I can nerd out and talk about consumer behavior for hours and hours and hours. And
now you know why Terry is part of Real World. He brings some valuable things nobody else does.
It's not by my looks. I assure you that.
Yeah.
So
I think it's
before we close,
I think it's the love swing.
Yeah, it might be, but before we close, there's been something that's been kind of irking me for like the last, and this is really getting off topic, for the last week, and this world seems like, especially our country, is just really gone completely crazy, and we're blaming people that had died hundreds of years ago for things that have happened, and we're trying to stereotype different individuals for things that they've done. And I just want everybody that's listening to this to understand one thing, and that is there's only one person that's ever walked the face of this earth that's been perfect. And I just hope that one day when everybody, whether it's 2 people or 200 people sitting at my funeral, that I'm not judged for some of the mistakes that I've made. And these people that, whether they're trying to tear down monuments or blame them on different things that they've done wrong, and they were wrong, there's only one thing that erases your history, and that's the blood of Jesus Christ. And I'm just sitting here watching all this turmoil and this thing going on in this country right now, and I'm just encouraging you listeners to understand that there's no wrong that's ever going to be fixed by bad-mouthing somebody, by tearing down history, trying to hide history, trying to do anything with hate. The only thing that's going to fix that is your personal relationship with Jesus. And I encourage you all to take a little bit different look at it. You can be as conspiracy theory as me and Don are on this whole COVID thing and mask thing and what it's really all about. That doesn't have anything to do with what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about just how people are treating each other right now. So I'm going to shut up now, and Don can close it out with any closing comments he's got. But it's just it's really been weighing heavy on me that all of a sudden we think that we can just walk away and delete our history out there. But there's really only one way people can do that, and that's by being saved. So I know that was off on a tangent you weren't expecting.
No, I wasn't, but that's why I love having you as the co-host, because you bring things up that I don't think about bringing up. I think about them all the time. And this is a topic I've thought about a lot lately. We're actually seeing good versus evil play out right in front of our eyes.
Absolutely.
Scripture, our eyes. In the end days, good will be called evil and evil will be called good, and we're seeing that. Seeing Scripture being fulfilled. I personally think that the situation our country is in right now is never going to get better. I think we're headed down a slope. I think a year from now, no matter who gets elected this fall, a year from now, this country is going to be worse than it is today. A year from there, it's going to be even worse yet. I think we're headed downhill until Jesus returns. Jesus is the only one that can heal what's going on, just like you said, Terry. And none of us are perfect. I've made plenty of mistakes, but that's our only hope. I don't think our hope is in Donald Trump. I don't think our hope is in Joe Biden. Our only hope is in Jesus. And I just hope some of the folks listen to this. I hope we at least give them something to think about. As you sit in your tree stand this fall, you're going to have a lot of time to sit there and dwell on things. Think about your future and your family's future, and especially you guys. The man is the leader of the family. A lot of the problems we're seeing today is because of men who didn't step up and didn't lead their families. The prisons are full of men whose fathers weren't there. So as you sit in your tree stand this fall, give that some thought. Are you leading your kids to Christ, to eternal salvation, or are you leading them to hell? Because it's one or the other. Your absence is probably going to lead them to hell, but you got the opportunity to be a big influence on your family, and I just encourage everybody to do that.
Or to other people that don't have fathers or family around.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
You want to make a difference in how much you're blessed in the hunting industry or with the outdoors or whatever you're passionate about. Don said it 100 times in his seminar. The best way to be blessed is to be a blessing to someone else. And that's only by being the influence and putting Christ first. So it's just bothered me for the last week, sitting there stewing about it while I didn't have anything else to do, and with what's going on. Just remember, there's nothing that's going to take away any of our sins or people's mistakes from 4 generations ago. There's only one thing that can wipe that away or take away history, and that's the blood of Christ. So,
Amen.
If you got any other questions or want to talk about that, just reach out to Don or I.
Yep, we'd be glad to talk to you about it. Even pray for you if you have special prayer requests. We're here to lift you up, not tear you down.
That's right. So what do we got coming up? I got surgery Friday, so it'll probably be about, a week or two before we get back on episode 26. What are we going to plan for episode 26, Don?
Well, we've promised for a while now to talk about a topic that I get a lot of questions about, and that's culling bucks. Culling bucks. Can you cull bucks out of a wild herd and make any difference at all? And I've got some, I think, unique views on that, and you probably do too, Terry. So I know we've got a bunch of questions to ask that have been asked already. That if I dig through the submitted questions have not been answered yet, I know we've got questions on culling bucks. So that's going to be the topic that we're going to hit on next episode.
All right, that sounds fun. So, like always, please follow Don's social media. He's got his new YouTube channel out that's getting a lot of views, so make sure you're watching that and subscribe to it. And also Higgins Outdoors on Instagram and Facebook, and Terry Peer on Instagram and Facebook. So other than that, you want to take us out, Don?
Yeah, absolutely. We want to thank our sponsors, BuyAFarm.com, 360 Hunting Blinds, Lone Wolf Tree Stands, Matthews Archery, Quiet Cat, Real World Wildlife Products, and Vortex Optics. See everyone next episode.